Welcome to Phillips Mill Art Talk. I'm Laura Womack. With me is Jen McHugh, our technical director.
Hi, everyone.
Jean Mihich is our producer, and tonight is an Art Talk special with Thom Goertel, our photography juror for the upcoming 11th annual Phillips Mill Photography Exhibition. Thom is a master of the camera who has shot seemingly everywhere across the US, Europe, and all the way to China. He seems to have shot every one, from Calvin Klein to Missoni to Andy Warhol. Since his father handed Thom one of his own SLRs when Thom was a high school senior, Thom has spent hours nearly every day doing photography, everything from street work, documentary and editorial photography, to commercial work. He's animated for the Hubble Space Telescope, established and ran Boeing's DC studio. He's worked for BMW, National Geographic, Turner Broadcasting, Discovery Channel, the networks, and more. He's published in the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal. Now working just part-time, Thom still takes corporate and editorial clients, has a weekly video gig at the Kennedy Center, regularly shoots at the White House. He does humanitarian trips to Mexico and Africa. He teaches privately. He's an artist in residence at the Museum of Musical Technology near Philadelphia, where he's exploring macro photography inside vintage synthesizers. He even shoots on an iPhone for his Instagram page. Thom does it all, and he's here to tell us about it. Welcome, Thom Goertel.
Thank you, Laura. Happy to be here.
Join us with your questions and comments in the Q&A, and let's get started with a photograph. All right. This is you, Thom.
Yes, and that's the first photograph that I consider this my starting point. This is a result of my father having given me that camera on the way to a summer at the Pennsylvania's School for the Art, Governor's School for the Arts. And I saw an open manhole and got an idea for a picture, and this is what resulted.
Well, it's a great illusion. You can't tell it all. Yeah. So you were actually headed to being a film student, as I recall.
Yes. I'd had the good fortune of being in the number of the right places at the right time. At this high school I was attending in Easton, Pennsylvania, the small town on the east coast of Pennsylvania. The high school had existed for 120 years, and I happened to be there the year that they started a film course. And as a result of that film course, I got a scholarship into the Pennsylvania Governor's School. On the way out of the driveway, on the way out of the house to go to that program, my dad had handed me a camera and said, "Here, this might come in handy." And just as the station wagon was pulling out of Bucknell, I met this guy named Spencer Saunders, who was there for photography. And really within a matter of days, between the intersection of those occurrences, my life had been changed, and photography became a part of my life. About 3 or 4 days in, Spence said, "Hey, you want to do something with that film you've been shooting? Let's go in the dark room," and changed my life.
You immediately fell in love, or?
It was magic. It was alchemy. It was so incredibly beautiful to see an image emerge in a pool of liquid.
Yeah. And so that was in the old days with chemicals in the dark room, etc. And of course, Spencer Saunders is the co-founder of the Phillips Mill Photography Exhibition, which I think I said is the 11th, but we're on our 31st. So my apologies for that. Jen, let's keep those pictures rolling.
I can also, just to grab a second of time, I can't overstate the importance of the governor's school and the ability to be that immersed for that period of time in a quality art program. It was one of those rare concentrated educational experiences that was life-defining.
Well, that's really great to hear, especially as people, as school districts are re-examining art and thankfully, putting it back in. STEM is becoming STEAM, and we're getting art programs back in, because I think not only is it important for artists, but it's important for all of us to have that creative outlet. It's a different way the brain works. So I appreciate that, Thom.
And they're not different parts. Yes, they are different parts of the brain, but there is so much collusion and collision and cross-pollination between those two worlds. There's creativity on both sides of that equation.
Absolutely agree. Yeah, so this is you as well.
Yes, that's me on the roads in Scotland. I had the good fortune of spending some time going to school in London. Was supposed to be going to school in London. A lot of it was spent hitchhiking and riding trains. And I had hitchhiked up to Edinburgh and met a guy in Edinburgh from Tasmania who had been loaned a car in Holland. And we spent a week driving around the Highlands together. And this was one of the moments there.
It's a great picture. Now, would you go back and tell your young son, did you put this, set this up, or did he, would you critique your younger self? Any thoughts about it? The photograph?
About the picture?
Yeah.
I wouldn't change a thing. It's as real as it gets.
There you go. And you took it, did you set it up on a camera, on a stand, on a tripod, or how did this picture happen?
Do I look that smart? I can't remember. I think, a lot of things were done at that point in time with the self-timer on a convenient rock someplace. I may have handed it to him. I seriously don't recall. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I think it's a great photograph too.
Thanks.
Funny looking back on our work after so many years. What's next, Jen?
This was taken in Brindisi. I was on my way to Corfu, and this is just an early street photograph.
All right, you want to talk about, and we have a lot of photographers with us tonight, so if there are any technical things you want to mention, memories of a particular occasion, we always love these little extra bits about photographs.
This would have been taken with a Canon FTB, probably a 50 millimeter lens. That camera and that lens were stolen one night out of a train compartment on the way to Milan, and for the rest of that trip, I didn't have a camera. But the film remained.
Now, at that time, did you consider yourself a photographer already? That's pretty devastating to lose your tool.
Yes, I did. One of the interesting things was the apartment that I had rented in London. There was a photographer and a photographer's assistant living on the first floor, and they had a dark room. And I got to do some darkrooming and work while I was there. I wasn't there. I wasn't going to school there for photography at the time, but I was able to continue to work while I was there.
Okay, yeah, well, that's good. All right, what's up next, Jen? And as she's getting up the next picture, if you want to share any questions or comments in the Q&A, we'd love to hear from you.
That's another street shot taken at about the same time in Rome. And that's the negative was really thin on that. And it wasn't until decades later that I scanned it and was able to pull that out of the negative.
So you digitally processed this so you could get more depth in your blacks, and yeah, interesting.
Yeah, it was one of those severe disappointments where pull the film out of the developer, and you don't have what you had hoped to have. So.
Right. Yeah. Well, you've got some great characters there.
Yeah.
And while we get the next question or the next photo up, we've got a question. Okay, this is a technical one. I think this is for, please move the box with the speaker out of the image area. That might be on their setup. I do not have any overlap.
I should be able to just move that with the mouse.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. Okay, tell us about this picture of the horse.
The picture of the horse, that was taken in Albania. I did a road trip to the Balkans right before COVID. And there's an assistant that I had hired to work with me down here, and we became fast friends. And he told me he was going back over to Northern Macedonia to start working on a documentary. And I told him I'd be happy to join him. And we did a road trip, and we had stopped in trying to remember the town, something like Borod. I don't recall the name of the town right now. It's the town with 1,000 windows. It's built on either side of a river. And this is an ancient, I think, Etruscan bridge. Don't quote me on that. And I was down walking around, just exploring this area, and this horse just happens to be under the bridge. It was completely magical.
Love
Had
it.
a very storybook feeling to it, especially being backlit.
Yeah, exactly. I love that little bit of light over his shoulder.
Yeah.
Okay, next photograph, please.
Another magical moment. I was working on a corporate project in St. Louis, and realized that I had 2 states to go to finish all 50. They were Oklahoma and Arkansas. And I decided to sew a little bit of elastic into the waistband of that trip and rent a car and go down and knock those 2 off and be able to claim I'd been to all 50 states. And this was taken in Yellville, Arkansas. And I had just within an hour crossed the border and was driving. And I had stopped a couple of blocks from this location for something that turned out not to be a picture. And on the way walking back to the car, I just saw the top of the building, that the decay up there, and that very different texture than anything else was in the area. And so I was walking over there and noticed this. And the car was running. It had paused for just a second. And I literally started jogging towards this and just started firing the camera in hopes of nailing a picture. And this is one of the shots I was able to get.
It's just so moody and evocative. I mean,
It was just such a magic moment.
Do you ever think like, oh, I'll never be able to catch it, and then, just give up? Or do you chase all the shots that you see?
It'd be really pretentious of me to say that I chase all the shots. It kills me. It killed me in Albania. I can't tell you the number of villages we drove past that I just wanted to go and spend a week in each of them. And it's just painful to know that you've left something behind.
Yeah. And when you take a shot like this, you're checking off your list of states, and this is a serendipitous shot. What do you do with something like this once you've taken it? I mean, it's a lovely picture, but you're a professional photographer. You don't, I presume, have a client for this that you can call up and say, I got this great shot. What do you do with it?
Most of my
just happen?
I mean, honestly, most of my work was that way. I do most of my work for myself. And occasionally, every few years, I'll have a show of a a chunk of work, either something thematic or something from a period of time, and show it in a gallery for a month or so, and get exposure that way. Certainly with social media and Instagram, some of my work gets exposure, but that's primarily work that I do on the phone. I don't the real photography that I do with the big cameras. The best shots don't usually get thrown up on social media. I don't know why I make the differentiation, but I do.
So social media. Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
That said, I don't make an imaging difference between those two platforms. There are things that I do and can do with my camera with it's on the phone that the other rig is just too cumbersome to do. I find using the phone to be such a almost gymnastic tool. It is so flexible, and I can shoot it, everything from macro to super wide angle effortlessly. It is just a joy.
And is there a reason still to have the big digital SLR?
My corporate clients like it.
All right.
And I can tell you the imagery is not the same. I did a job. I'm actually in the middle of editing a couple of projects that was hired to do, and the second one especially was very difficult from just in terms of you walk into a situation and it is what it is, and you can augment with flash, but at this point in time, you walk into a lot of environments, and the mix of color temperatures that are in there, it's nightmarish from a photo editing standpoint. The phone tends to oversimplify things, but the larger raw files that you get out of at least in my experience, the files that I'm able to get out of my bigger cameras give me a lot more latitude in terms of really being able to craft an image.
All right, good. Good to know. Jen, let's take some of the questions in the Q&A and add yours if you've got something for Thom Goertel.
Okay, Tom. Nora asked, are there photographers of the past or present whose work has influenced you or that you particularly admire?
Oh, there's lots and lots of them. I am a big Paul Strand fan. The big ones, Stieglitz and Steichen. I'm fascinated by their lives as well as even almost more so than their work. Certainly their work was splendid, but that time at what the amount that they were able to move the needle is impressive. Michael Kenna is a contemporary photographer I like a great deal. Certainly Annie Leibovitz as a portraitist. Saul, the book's right over there. I'm blanking on his last name. The guy from the 50s that did the rain-covered windows. Saul Leiter.
Okay.
Solleiter. There's a few to start with.
Yeah, that sounds good. Let's take another question. Keep them coming.
Okay. Has your preference for subject matter changed over your career or remained consistent?
It's expanded a great deal. I used to never take pictures of anything that was alive. Occasionally street people, people on the street, but in terms of doing any portraiture, I didn't. And when I was hired to build the studio for Boeing, one of the capabilities I added to it was, because I could, a very high-end digital photography presence. And with that came responsibility of having to do corporate portraiture. And I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I had a big strobe kit, and the first time I fired that thing up, it was like the first time I was in the ocean. I was drowning in light. I didn't have a clue as to what to do, and I thought that I had it under control, but the reality was that I didn't know what looked good and I didn't know what a good portrait was. And I had the opportunity to go up to the main media workshop and study for a week with a fantastic photo educator. That's how she considers herself. She's also a very good photographer by the name of Bobby Lane. And Bobby, like the governor's school, changed my life. Things that Bobby said still ring true when I'm out. And from that moment on, I started shooting people as well and enjoying it.
That's great. Let's take a picture. Jen, do we have some portraits available to us? I know we've got like a layout here of our slideshow. And while you're working on that, I'm going to ask a question. We've got an anonymous question, Tom. Have you had to train your eye to find shots, or is it always organic? How hard do you have to look? Search.
The truth is that they usually appear in the periphery. When you're out looking for something, yes, there are times. Yes, when I have time. Yes, when I had time, I would go out looking. But what I see typically is not something conscious. I just happen upon them and see them, rather than working real hard to do it. It's I don't want to sound pretentious about this, but I can walk down the street looking for a photograph and not find one. I can go down the street without any time and stumble onto a half dozen, and they're just there. They like I said, I see them out of the corner of my eye. And what's funny, on road trips, like I did a trip to North Dakota about 10 years ago, and a lot of time out there was spent going from point A to point B. But that same sort of vision would have, that sort of peripheral realization of things would happen, and I zigzagged back and forth countless times, going back to find things that I either saw or thought I had seen in my periphery.
Do you use a tripod very often, or are you mostly working with your camera handheld?
Very, very, very seldom.
Yeah, you're mobile. All right, let's take a picture. Let's take a look at some pictures.
That's from the North Dakota trip.
Yeah.
That picture was actually a result of, it's funny that I mentioned Bobby Lane. Shortly after I took the course up in Maine, I had a business trip out to the Dakotas, and I again sewed some elastic into the waistband of that trip, and went up and did a 1,500-mile loop. And there was one Sunday morning, I was out for a drive, and I spotted an interesting livestock auction building. And I'd stopped to take a picture of the architecture, and noticed that in the lower part of the building, there was a coffee shop filled with a handful of ranchers. And I literally said to myself, put up or shut up. You're either going to start taking pictures of people or not. And I went in and spent some time talking to these guys, and finally got comfortable with asking these hard ranchers if I could take some portraits. So we all got a good laugh of it, and they let me take their pictures for about 45 minutes or so. And they invited me back while they were branding some heifers that afternoon, and it was a really nice icebreaker. This is another one of those.
These are just such beautiful pictures. I mean, there's such clarity and detail in their faces, and the context is really nice, Tom. These are
Thank you.
beautiful. Yeah.
These guys had
Um,
great texture.
Yeah, they have great texture. And so is that why you printed them black and white, or how do they look in color? Did you shoot in color, or did you shoot
It's funny. These had never been black and white up until this set. I'd never done them. They'd always been in color up until I prepared these for you.
Oh, they look great in
And
black.
they're I actually prefer them in black and white.
Yeah, gorgeous. All right,
Thank you.
let's take another couple of pictures. So this is different portraiture. Was
This was an interesting project. This actually becomes a really complicated story. This was a boxing gym over it's a boxing gym on a harness racetrack over in Maryland, and not in a great area. And it was run by a guy named Buddy, and Buddy had done hard time back early in his life, and came out and got his act together and started this boxing gym. And Buddy was a real shepherd to a group of men that came there. He was very Christ-like, actually. He was constantly donating clothing and foodstuffs and whatnot on a weekly basis. He had an outreach program in addition to the gym, and these men that would come to him would go to him, come to him for boxing skills, also go to him for life's advice. And this is his son, Dusty, who he's a professional boxer at this point in time. Met a lot of interesting men with some fascinating stories. I'm not sure if there are any pictures of Japreem. Is a man that I met there who had a very rough past, and he's now an underground rap artist in DC. And I take his picture on occasion, 4 or 5 times a year. That's Japreem.
This is lovely, Tom. The shadow in this just makes it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Really nice picture. Okay, let's go back to the Q&A. Please join us with your questions. Jem, what do we have?
Okay, John said, seeing your work, you make excellent environmental portraits. How do you get related to people in another country so they feel comfortable for the photos you make of them?
You make the camera disappear, and I don't, I wish I could tell you how I did it. It's portraiture is exceptionally intimate, and that moment where you're taking a picture of someone, especially one that's where they're actually giving you something. It's almost like a kiss. And you make eye contact. A lot of times I'm looking over the top of the camera, but there is there's a presence between you and the subject that has to emerge for just that second out of the vacuum, and then it disappears back in.
do you ask for permission? And if so, is it verbal or, I've done a little bit of travel snapshotting in my day and I sort of gesture and people seem to know. But I do like to know that they're okay with it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's otherwise it's invasive. I mean, there's all sorts of nasty words you can put attached to it. I ask, I gesture, and I would never take a picture of someone who does not want their picture taken.
Yeah. It's a
No
trust.
subterfuge. This is Berta, and I've one of the humanitarian projects I have is ongoing down in Cuernavaca. It's with a group called Vamos, and Vamos works with children, their mothers, and elderly women. It's one of those places that the men just aren't around. There are other places finding money to send home, and I've been down, worked on 3 different photographic projects down there for Vamos, and on the first project. It was a survey. I shot the schools. I shot the medical situation down there, a bunch of different things. But one of the opportunities I had was to go while these interviews were taking place between some of the older women and the staff of this foundation in their homes. It was amazing. The intimacy of being in their environment with them and being able to photograph in their homes was exceptional. And so on the plane on the way back from the first visit, the fellow that I work with, whom I've known since college, who runs the foundation, I said, look, I don't care how it happens, but we've got to get back down, and I want to shoot these women in their homes. And so the next year we went down, and over the course of 5 days, was able to shoot 36 women in and around their homes, and somehow, to do these environmental portraits of them. And that's actually all of those portraits are on my website. And that was a show that I made a lot of. I've displayed that now 3 or 4 times, different locations, and have managed to generate a lot of income for that charity. And the logistics for that trip were just remarkable in terms of how to find these women's homes, how to get things scheduled. The staff of the foundation did a great job of making it happen.
Yeah. One thing I like about this picture, Tom, is, the way she's looking up and sort of in this far away dream kind of place. And it looks like you're low. And it really emphasizes that sort of, fantasy look on her face. Do you often shoot low? Was that serendipitous?
The the viewer bring a lot to this. I don't like shooting down on people if I can, unless I need to hide a double chin or something. The camera for this I put this camera at about eye level. That's how we like to see one another. Low angle is creepy. High angle is threatening. So I like just maintain the humanity of of keeping the camera at eye level.
Yeah, that's nice. All right, we're gonna take some more questions from the Q&A. They keep coming in and we appreciate that. Keep them coming. What's up next, Jen?
First, we have a comment from Stephen. He said he loves the black and white, especially on such rustic faces, and the portraits looks awesome. And
Thanks,
then
Stephen.
Jim asked, How much do you direct the poses of the human models? How is the cooperation on that? And does it take a lot of direction?
The more people are directed, the less natural they're going to be. In cases like corporate portraits where they need to be formulaic, there's a lot of direction. Most of the rest of the time, I actually tend to get the posed ones out of the way, knowing that they weren't any good, and rely on the pictures that were taken on either side of it. The ones that were, don't worry about this, I'm just getting focused, or the ones I've grabbed after they've relaxed a bit.
Do people ever object to that? Like, oh, I wasn't ready. I mean, people can
People
be.
object to everything. People I encounter aren't any different from the people you encounter.
Yeah, that's true. I want to go back, since you mentioned those corporate portraits. I want to go back to, you set up a studio for Boeing. What were you taking? So, and you mentioned the corporate portraits. Were you taking airplane pictures? What were you taking for Boeing?
Oh, it was remarkable. I was working for a company which Boeing acquired, and I was actually an animator for that company, and I needed to make a change once I got inside of Boeing, because they, even though I was working with external clients, even though that was very successful, there just weren't enough zeros, and it wasn't a core competency. So I heard about this theater that they were building. It's this remarkable theater with 17 seats, and they were spending $11 million to build it, and it was for networked simulations of different scenarios. And I approached the guy that was running that, and I said, "It's a really interesting project you've got going here. Don't you think you need some right brain in there?" And, "What are you talking about?" And I showed him what I did, and he said, "You're right. Write up a job description." And so I became the creator of this studio, and we ended up having a shooting stage. We had a control room for doing network switched broadcasts all over the world. We had edit suites, we had animation capabilities, and a lot of lenses and some really nice camera bodies. And I went down into the desert. I flew a lot of different places for Boeing and shot a lot of different things. Learned a lot about portraiture in that studio. That was a real high point. I very, very much enjoyed it. And I did all of, I would say 95% of the retouching I did of people's portraits, I did one-on-one with them sitting next to me. And it wasn't, I never got to, hey, do you want me to whiten your teeth, or do you want me to get rid of this or that? It was very intimate, and it was like looking into someone else's mirror through their eyes, looking at looking into someone else's self-image through their eyes. And we would talk and we would joke, and I never had any pushback while I was doing it. This sort of dynamic was established, and I sort of sensed how they were feeling about where it was going, and it became process.
Yeah.
Did that answer a question, or did that dance around a question? I don't remember.
It was interesting, so that's good. I mean, it's almost like you're an anthropologist out there studying people and recording it on film instead of on.
No, there's so much anthropology in it.
Yeah, cool. All right, let's see some more photographs. We got a little time. Let's get through a few and we'll go back to the Q&A. And thank you everybody for participating. We really appreciate it.
This was my COVID piece. Going into, and it wasn't meant to be my COVID piece, it just is my COVID piece. Going into COVID, I had this miserable creative block, and I hadn't taken a picture in about a year. And decided I had heard one day that iPhones were able to now take raw files, and that was interesting to me. And so I went and I got a new phone and started working during COVID and started shooting. I live in a fairly wooded area, and I just started doing these macro pictures of trees and bushes and weeds, etc., seed pods. And the result, I got to learn the phone that way, and I actually started seeing in a different way. And it's funny that the that peripheral vision mechanism worked on that scale as well as for street shooting. And over time, as the lockdown became less locked down, I started traveling around a little bit, started seeing some friends, started doing some different things, and started photographing that. And this accumulation of pictures, going back to what do I do with my pictures? And the mill asked. I was invited to show a piece at the mill. And the instruction was, yeah, it could just be something you got in the closet there. Don't worry about it. And I decided, no, I was going to make something new. And this was the result of that. And it's for me probably the most different piece I've done, and it probably qualifies more than anything I've done in terms of actually being a piece of art. There are lots of ideas and problems and things in there that I know about, the evolutions, and it was an interesting piece. I had it actually had it. It was printed up just outside of Philadelphia by an excellent firm up there. They're plug here called Brilliant Graphics. They're the best print shop I've had a chance to work with. If anybody's looking for a printer, so it's a neat piece.
It is. It's a really neat piece. I think it's interesting you shot it on an iPhone, and it sort of echoes that like Instagram grid a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts? Like, is there a minimum iPhone that you would shoot with? I mean, how far back would you go? Or maybe you haven't made a big study of the iPhones. I know like the
I don't
new.
know. I'm still shooting with it. Still shooting with a 12, and I actually there's a project I'm shooting next week, and I'm one of two photographers on the job, and they mentioned that there's a need for social media on it, and I'm actually thinking about going up and I'm going to shoot the event on my phone and work with with the social media team and pushing them in real time. But I'm thinking about actually going and getting a new one. But the 12 is very, very useful.
Do you think we'll ever give up our digital SLRs?
Probably not.
Okay.
Probably. I mean, a lot of people have given up conventional cameras.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very a lot of. I'm sure there are many homes out there that don't have a camera per se that formerly would have. How much? The interesting question is how much photography was actually being done with those cameras previously.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work in the first world to remember to take a phone along, to take a camera along, to be deliberate about it, to have the battery charged, to have a clean card and be ready to go. There's a saying, what's the best camera, and it's the one you've got with you, and that's always true.
Yeah. Just a quick question. How big are these?
That is it's on the wall right behind the camera. Those are 30 by 30 panels.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, good. Let's take some questions. We do have a question about the jurying process. As Jen gets that up, obviously, we want to be a little delicate about how we answer that and respect people's feelings and the process and everything, but let's see what we can find out.
Okay, so we had a question. I'm curious about your criteria, your mindset and goals when jurying the numerous outstanding photos submitted to Phillips Mill. Do you have a theme, or do you choose simply what caught your eye?
The show was not themed. And it would not be fair to anyone who entered for me to superimpose a theme upon it. First and foremost, I did an initial pass looking for what jumped out at me. What were the wow images? And after that, I went back through, and there were we had very specific thematic areas that we needed to address. Best nature picture and best portrait. Being able to segment the entries that way. And so I went through looking for portraits. I went through looking for nature photographs, looking, whatever those categories were. And that essentially is how I did it. Not everyone submitted 6 images or 4 images that were related to one another. A bicycle, an apple, a tree, and an automobile. That stood less of a chance of being, for me, choosing that as a body of work versus someone who had shot just milkweed, dried milkweed pods. A study of those, or a study of zinnias, for example. Is that helpful?
I think so. I hope so. I appreciate that, Tom, and appreciate your thoughtfulness in selecting artwork. I think it's a really tough job to jury a show. And we really appreciate you giving us a great show. I know it's a great show. I've had a little peek. So we've got another question, and then I'm really excited to get to the AI stuff because that is very cool. So let's satisfy our audience, Jen.
Okay, this is from Anonymous, and they said, how do you think starting your career in film and the darkroom has shaped how you edit and compose photos in a digital workflow?
I don't know that I think that the way I see and the way I work is the confluence of everything I've ever seen. There was a period during high school in that small town where one of the local colleges had an international or foreign, great word, foreign, a foreign film series. And on Friday nights, and for a period of time, we'd go up and see those films without context, without really knowing who these filmmakers were, without knowing what the French New Wave was, without knowing the context for these, and just seeing the visuals and being struck by them. I think back to when I was in 2nd grade. there was a magazine that I liked, like a kid's magazine, Highlights magazine. I was drawn to that. Why? In retrospect, I know that I was drawn to it because of the layout. And the layout and the fact that it was printed in duotone. So I don't know that anything that I've seen or done, because I spent 20 years as an animator as well and working in doing graphic arts. I think all of those visual experiences have informed what I'm doing now. I don't know that that any one thing jumps out. I think that everything I've ever seen, somehow becomes part of the metric for whether or not I push the trigger or not. Is this too much like something else? Is it worth pushing? Is it worth that gesture? And as the moment presents itself, subconsciously, all of those images are flying through my head, completely subconsciously, forming the basis for the decision to take that picture or not.
Yeah. That's a great way to wrap up that section and then move forward to the AI. I mean, this was something that you and I talked about afterwards, adding to, and I really appreciate you bringing it in. It's so topical. And as Jen is pulling up your AI pictures, what made you want to do AI? Why? What is the AI part? What are we seeing here? That's not,
That's 100%. There's 100% text to image generation. I, over my lifetime of making images now, I've touched, probably, 15 different media over time, or media over time. Some I've chosen to get, there's some things I haven't done any watercolor, but there are, different media that I've, lifted up the lid and to see what I could do with. And I saw some AI generated work, and I was curious about it, and so I've just been experimenting a little bit. It is, and I stress a little bit. I've not seeded it with. I've not seeded any of the knowingly seeded any of the models with an image with which to base an image on. These are all images that are just completely text generated. It's a
So-
fascinating product. Go ahead.
So Tom, does that mean you typed in, strong side light on a snail, trying to brush his teeth or what? Or did so you didn't give any baseline images for it to merge? You just
No, these are all just words. I don't know if have you tried this at all?
I have not, I've done writing, not imagery. Yeah.
Well, imagery is sort of like sitting down, having heard piano music and not having taken piano lessons, sitting down at a piano with oven mitts on and trying to bang a tune out. It is it's one of the stranger image generation mediums that I've dealt with. It's iterative. It's iterative in the same way that initial darkrooming for me was, because you would go out and take a picture, and before you know how to print, everything looks gray and like garbage, and it isn't until days or weeks later that you actually can begin to get some tonality and some texture and some appeal into an image. And this what's interesting about this is the direction changes as you go in and make mistakes. And that's really, it happens in other media for me as well. I remember a moment where I was doing some 3D animation where I had shut a bunch of virtual lights off in order to see something, and I had forgotten to turn them back on before I rendered something. And the result was something that I had never thought about doing before, and it became a tool. And that's one of the things that's happened here is there is a bit of serendipity and a bit of like having a creative partner. I actually had a good client a few years ago who used to misunderstand me in the best way. I would say something, he would hear it wrong, give it back to me, and we were off in a new direction. And it was lovely.
I mean, so on the AI, and we're about out of time, but to me, it's kind of interesting to think about, the role of the artist here. You're the artist, you're giving words to this computer program. Is there an art to the way you write it? What you're asking it to do, or what is the art? Or is it, just thinking of the fish in the water on the windowsill? I mean, what's the role of the artist in AI photography?
Well, I mean, I would never, in terms of image making, I would never, I'm not envision. I mean, I'm looking to incorporate mood and framing and depth of field and all of the artifacts and devices of the other tools that I've used into creating these. I mean, these are all very, very photographically derived. And this is a couple nights worth of work here. This isn't anything any great effort on my part to arrive at these. I'm really wondering where it can go from here, or if there's a ceiling of some sort. I don't know.
And so would this be like 2 sentences, or is this a paragraph, a page of writing? Telling it what
This
you
is
want?
maybe three. This is maybe 3 sentences.
That's amazing.
And the idea of the sort of the theme for this group, if for the sort of the path I was following, were just animals in human situations. I did just see something absolutely remarkable. Perhaps the best thing that I've seen, and that was a series of homeless people depicted in AI by chimpanzees. It was had a huge impact and really made me want to throw all of this stuff out. It was so thoughtful and had such a message behind it.
I'm gonna have to look for that, and I know it'll be controversial, and there's a lot to shake out. But maybe sometime, Tom, we can have a conversation about AI. I really applaud you for how much you've explored different aspects of the digital media world.
Well, it's funny. I'll say this. What I found upsetting is I've subsequently taken all my AI stuff down off of Instagram. Is that I was starting to get an attitude from people that I shouldn't be doing this. And if I start working in tempera paint, should I not be doing that? If it is just another medium.
And then the intent becomes so important, doesn't it? Yeah. Exactly. You're a thoughtful guy, Tom, and thank you for all your work. Thank you for sharing, your insight with us here on Art Talk, and thank you so much for being the juror for the 31st.
Thank you for that honor. It was a pleasure.
Very good. Thanks all of you for joining us here on Art Talk. Phillips Mill, Jen McHugh is our technical director. And Jean Mihich, she is our producer. We are going to have Dot Bun on our next Art Talk next month. But we want to invite you all to join us for that. And we also want to invite you all to join us for the upcoming Phillips Mill 31st Photographic Exhibition. The team is working hard and it's a great show. So thank you all so much. Have a good night.
Thank you.